Good morning. Top of the morning to you. Let's talk about feet. So the next thing I'm going to do is trim, but before I trim, I want to introduce the notion of feet. Now you've seen them, you've held them, they're everywhere. You have two of them. Pots always have a foot. They can be flat, they can be grooved sometimes, often they're suspended. I'll show you a few. So once you've thrown a pot, I've dried this overnight under a bit of plastic, so it is leather hard, and that means that in this case, if I run my fingernail along it, I can make an easy score mark, but it's not mushy and it's not too hard. So this one's just about perfect for trimming. So I made a couple of these tea bowls recently. They don't have handles, but they have very different feet. And there are a couple decisions that you want to make. What's the angle here? What's the depth of the foot that you're going for? Do you want a deep foot? Do you want it to just slice off? There are other decisions you can make later. This foot's very different. You can see that rather than going down at almost a right angle, it is at an angle that echoes this angle here, which I really quite like. And then in this case, I made a very sharp line, probably with either my fingernail or a tool that I'll introduce in a minute. And that sharp line catches the glaze. So you want to, when you glaze, be very careful about this. Sometimes you want it to kind of drip out over the pot, and that can be a nice kind of looser arrangement. And sometimes you just want it nice and crisp. And so that's one decision you're making at this point. This third tea bowl actually does something different, which is it comes out a little bit. It doesn't go straight down, it comes out a little bit, and it again has a looser connection at the foot that I kind of like. I'm going to introduce a couple tools now. So there are several different ones that I use. Anybody who's ever been in a pottery studio is going to know these tools. These are just the classics. Any pottery studio is going to have them. They're great. You can remove a bunch of clay pretty effectively with them. These tools are made by a gentleman out in I think he's in San Diego. Wonderful potter, works mostly with porcelain. And he makes his own tools. And I got these as a birthday present from my spouse. I just love them. I love them because they have some really different, interesting shapes. This one can be great. This is a real humdinger. They're also terribly, terribly sharp. And when I'm working in particular with porcelain, I want them to be sharp because I sometimes am looking for exceptionally crisp lines, almost like carving stone. It's a wonderful thing you can do with porcelain. Some other tools that I use, I actually won these in a contest, which was a happy moment for me. And I believe these are just made out of the kind of strapping metal that goes around very large containers. But these are terrific, and you can get some different effects. One in particular is called chattering. And this is the tool that I use for chattering. It's longer than the other tools you'll see because it's this strapping metal. It has a bit of a flex. And if you hold this tool at the end, it's going to be not very stable. Usually you want a trimming tool to be super stable. In this case, you don't. And the reason you don't is that when the pot is turning on the wheel, it may jump a bit as the wheel turns and as the pot turns. And that gives you essentially this kind of textured feeling. Here you can see it particularly well. And that's called chattering. And you can sometimes emphasize, which I often do, chattered surface when you get to the glazing stage, or you can select a glaze that itself may respond to a chatter by having different qualities and even colors as that is glazed. So we just put these aside and talk about the other tools I'm going to use, one of which I have not had the presence of mind to bring over here. So hang on one second. This is a key tool that I really like, and it's just a stone. It's a particularly hard stone that's been polished to a high gloss. And that you can see that a little better. And because it's so hard and so polished, I use this at the end which you'll see in the next video, to burnish the foot at the very end of this process. And so, for instance, here's a porcelain cup that I use to keep some of my tools in. But this base is supremely soft. It's just like fabric almost in terms of the softness, like silk. And as the trimming is finished, I will take this tool and I'll run it sort of over the turning foot, and it will push, for a stoneware, it will push any granular material down deep into the clay, and it creates almost a glassy surface even when it's leather hard. And that's important to me because when you have a pot, let's say it's a vase, and you put it on a very nice piece of wood furniture, you don't want to move that pot and end up with a scratch on your furniture. So this burnishing, and later after everything is fired, some final sanding at the end, are going to make sure that even if you're dealing with stoneware, you can still create a very smooth, even base. So the last tools that I use are these little guys. A needle tool is really important for various reasons, some of which I'll get into. This is a tool that I will use to create in this sequence. Well, I guess I already did it. So this one I used during the throwing to create these lines. And that was while the wheel, of course, was turning. Some of these other ones I may use to create some effects as I trim. I don't use them that often, but sometimes I just feel moved to do so. All right, so next video I will be trimming. Thanks for joining. Bye.